termite season.
Hi, it's me.
And bugs fear the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. Go blue at Essential Pest Control. We'll eliminate those bugs, bees, and termites. And stop paying too much to that national provider. Buy local for great service and affordable rates. Call Essential Pest Control because termites fear the blue.
Run for your life.
Call for the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. 886-3029. That's 886-3029. Or check online at essentialpest.com.
This is Ed Wilkinson with Wilkinson Wealth Management, where we manage money for gun owners. What does it mean to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired? It means designing a plan that allows you to do the things you want to do, outpace inflation, and never run out of money in your lifetime. If you want to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired, call me, Ed Wilkinson, at 777-1911. That's 777-1911 or WilkinsonWealthMGMT.com.
I'm proud to welcome my good friends at Tucson Iron and Metal Retail to Inside Track as an advertiser. Jamie Kipper and her staff are conservation experts. They sell round and square steel tubing, metal plate and roofing materials, as well as new and used steel, aluminum, and stainless steel to ranchers, artists, interior designers, roofers, as well as you do-it-yourselfers out there. Tucson Iron and Metal Retail is open Monday through Fridays, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to noon. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail, 701 East 36th Street. Call 520-209-1576. That's 520-209-1576, or go to TucsonIronRetail.com. Come by and be sure to ask for Jamie. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail. This is what conservation and repurposing is all about.
Welcome to Inside Track with Bruce Ash and Ed Wilkinson on the Live the Dream Media Network.
Hello, everybody, and a very pleasant good morning to you wherever you may be. Welcome to episode 26 of Inside Track. Bruce Ash coming to you today live and solo in the Live the Dream Media Studios in Marana, Arizona. We have another big action-packed Wednesday show for you today on Inside Track. Eb is on assignment. He'll join us again next week for our special Veterans Day show, which features a retired naval aviator, lead solo in the Blue Angels, Frank Weiser. Should be a great show. Joining us directly is Washington Examiner investigative reporter Robert Schmad. We'll be picking through the election returns from yesterday's by-elections all around the country. RNC co-chair Casey Crosby will zoom in later this hour also and look at some of the implications of the elections around the country and how the Republicans look in 2026. Rounding out the show today is our good friend Onita Davis. She'll pop in for a quick message about wreaths across America, and I have a check presentation for her to make for this year's ceremonies in December. Thanks for joining us on Live the Dream Media app or watching us on X, Facebook, YouTube, and our other platforms. Before we hear from our guest from the Washington Examiner, I have a few comments on the news. Former Vice President Dick Cheney, as we know, died earlier this week. He served 4 presidents and was one of the most consequential advisors to the White House over the past 6 decades. I congratulate him for his service to different presidents, but he really stained his image, I think, forever, the way that he supported Kamala Harris and jumped on his daughter's bandwagon, trying to impeach and derail the Trump presidency, because Trump stands for something different than what Vice President Cheney as well as President Bush stood for. I sort of have a funny story about Dick Cheney. I talked about it yesterday on my Facebook page. The year's 2008, I think. John Kyle's running for re-election, and there's a huge fundraiser here in Tucson. I paid a bunch of money. I'm embarrassed to tell you how much, but I paid a bunch of money, particularly now, almost 20 years ago. It's still a lot of money today. And this was to get into a private meeting with Vice President Cheney. And I was told by the person organizing the event, you need to be on time because the Cheney and Bush are very, very punctual. I was super punctual myself, unlike the way I usually operate, and showed up, I thought, 15 minutes early. Unfortunately, the vice president got there 20 minutes ahead of his schedule as well. And by the time I got to the La Paloma and tried to get into the room, there was a Secret Service agent saying, you cannot enter this room. And I basically pled my case, and he basically said, get out of here or we're going to arrest you. I found my friend who organized this event. She finally did get me in. And I tried to kind of sneak into the building, not wanting to disturb the vice president and his presentation. And of course, what happened? The door leading into that meeting room started, screeching along. And I got the first vice presidential stare of the day. He looked at me and followed my pathetic body as I walked to find a seat where I was assigned to. Unfortunately, that slob of a mayor, Bob Walkup, somehow talked his way into the meeting before it started. He actually took my place card, threw it on the floor, and took my chair. So I ended up sitting against the wall in a crappy little chair. Some benefit for paying a bunch of money, a 5-figure gift to the Kyle campaign. And so as I'm sitting there and kind of getting settled, just trying to sort of blend into the background as the vice president is talking about Iranian nuclear enrichment at that moment, my phone goes off in my pocket, and it's loud, and I couldn't get to my phone. He stops again, and he is glaring at me like Darth Vader. And I dug into my pocket. I couldn't get my phone out. And anyway, long story short, he gave us talk. And by the way, he said we'd have that nuclear enrichment would be enhanced enough to produce an atomic bomb by Iran in 2012. That didn't happen, thank goodness. But about an hour or so later, they were taking pictures. And guess who I was taking a picture with? Vice President Cheney. And I apologized to him for the interruptions. He just, and that was the end of it. Anyway, a very interesting, my own little experience with Vice President Cheney. Congratulations to the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Toronto Blue Jays. It was a great series and had a good time watching it into the early morning time as well as that Saturday evening when the Dodgers finally prevailed. It's the morning after the election in Tucson, and both GOP candidates lost by what looked to be 3-1 margins, and override elections were passed. Business as usual here in Tucson, Arizona. Janet and Jay worked hard and should be appreciated for their efforts, but the odds were against them from the very beginning in this blue-impacted portion of Arizona. First half hour of today's show brought to you by our good friend Eric Rudin from Essential Pest Control. Call Essential to help keeping your home or business free from all forms of insects, vermin, and weeds today at 886-3029. So onward to our first guest. On the anniversary of a great national Republican victory 1 year ago, Democrats won some big victories in the 2025 by-elections in New York City, New Jersey, and Virginia, and Gavin Newsom's scheme was a big winner in California. Our first guest today is investigative reporter Robert Schmad from the Washington Examiner. Welcome to Inside Track, Robert.
It's great to be on.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. Hey, what's the vibe in D.C. this morning?
There is a lot of shock. I actually live in the D.C. suburbs in Arlington, Virginia, and people are very sort of shooken up that Jay Jones managed to shake off this, multiple controversies, not only, speeding at 116 miles per hour, but I think more impactful for the people around me is that text controversy where he sort of openly stated that he wanted to see his Republican colleague shot dead alongside his children. And I think a lot of DC Republicans understand that the people who were walking next to on the street every day, who live next to us even, voted for this guy. And that is pretty disturbing.
Yeah, how in the heck does that happen? That makes no sense to me. This guy was
Meaning,
dislikable people in a long time to be at a high statewide level, don't you think?
yeah, and man, it really is shocking. I've heard some people try to explain it away, like, okay, maybe voters just, weren't aware of the controversy. But exit polls show that I think 17%, one exit poll I saw said that they didn't know enough about the controversy to have an opinion on it. So, 83% of voters knew about it and had an opinion on it. And here we are with Jay Jones as our Attorney General elect in Virginia.
So there are decisive Democrat victories in New York City and New Jersey, but weren't their victories somewhat predictable? Because in these major blue areas, this is what normally happens. Weren't their victories not part of a blue wave, but just business as usual in those blue states?
And listen, that's a great trend. It's a great point. A lot of national Republican consultants have sort of framed these three elections as, very winnable or bellwethers, and I think that's a mistake because New York, New Jersey, Virginia, these are obviously blue states. If Republicans win in them, that's great. In 2021, when Youngkin won, that was seen as a watershed moment, really sort of prefiguring what would happen in the following years. But I don't think Republicans should be so shaken up about losing in New York or New Jersey. And, the races are pretty close. New Jersey isn't as solidly blue as it once was. And I think that is something that Republicans perhaps could see as a positive, despite their loss last night.
So with loads of furloughed federal workers in Northern Virginia particularly, did the Democrat, or what effect did the Democrat shutdown of Congress have on the vote in Virginia? A lot of pissed off workers.
Certainly. And it almost likely was a factor. I've seen some press reports saying that now with the election passed, Democrats in Congress might be more willing to strike a deal, which the implication there sort of is that Democratic strategists understood that the continued shutdown, the paychecks not coming in, might mobilize their voters in Northern Virginia. And indeed, Democrats had a very, very strong showing in Northern Virginia, specifically last night. I believe Republicans lost their last few members in Northern Virginia for the Commonwealth Legislature. So the Northern Virginia shift was especially strong, and I think that does maybe point towards the government shutdown being a factor.
Glenn Youngkin had a pretty good run as governor of Virginia. Now, he's term limited to just that one term, so he wasn't able to run again. The perception from this side of the country, in the western part of flyover country, was that he did a pretty good job. Was this a repudiation of him, or was it that Winsome Sears really just had one thing that she kept focusing on and banging away time and time and time again, day after day, about no boys and girls restrooms?
It's interesting. Glenn Youngkin, the perception in Virginia is also that he did a pretty good job. The governor has consistently had over a 50% approval rating, which, as a Republican governor in a blue state is no small task. And I think your point on Sears's campaign being a little too narrowly focused is true. The transgender issue was a part of Youngkin's 2021 campaign. That is true, but it was a broader sort of kitchen tables issue campaign. And I think Sears maybe leaned too hard into an issue which, maybe is very strong nationally, but in Virginia just isn't much of a factor. Again, to what extent we blame Sears, to what extent we blame the consultants behind her, it's hard to say. But I do think that's accurate. I honestly, living in Virginia, the only rhetoric I really saw from Sears consistently was on the transgender issue, and perhaps that was a mistake.
And I have a son whose family lives in Loudoun County, in far kind of northwestern Virginia, just below the Harpers Ferry area, in that area. And the vote seemed to be pretty solid out in those neck of the woods, but is the Republican brand stained in Virginia? Is there enough of an anti-Trump, anti-Republican rhetoric that goes on there, enough to think that maybe Virginia's not in play in the congressional races in the midterms, as well as in 2028 in the next presidential?
Yeah, well, the congressional races especially are interesting because the Democrats in the Commonwealth in the state legislature are planning to do a pretty strong gerrymander if they can get away with it. So, the actual will of the voters may not end up mattering too much if they have their way with that. Uh, and in terms of Virginia specifically, for better or for worse, it is a very heavily college educated state, especially up in Northern Virginia. And for whatever reason, college educated voters seem to really not like Donald Trump. Uh, for whatever reason, it's hard to project into the future. Political coalitions are very unstable. Perhaps it's the case that in 2028, if Vance is the nominee, maybe college-educated voters will find him more agreeable, and we could see a reversion of some maybe ancestral Republicans in Northern Virginia and the rest of Virginia shifting back to the GOP. It's hard to say, but in the short term, certainly the demographics in Virginia do not. The math is not good for Republicans, suffice to say.
And the math for female voters, college-educated female voters, has really gone backwards. The Republican Party never really had great support from college-educated females, and a lot of them being unmarried females. But whether it was in Virginia or in New York City, it seems to have really become a vengeance.
Oh yeah, if my memory serves, in New York, I believe college-educated females 18 to 29 voted Mamdani like 80%, 80%, and you see similar numbers in New Jersey and in Virginia. It really does seem to be these young college-educated women that are sort of the Democratic Party's strongest soldiers, and it's interesting to see that ongoing as men, even college-educated men, begin to shift to the right. It is an interesting dynamic as a young person to see play out. There's a lot of frustration, and I feel like the frustration between the sexes there will only continue to drive that partisan divergence.
Mm-hmm. Polling was obviously way off. Is this just more evidence that the whole polling system as we've known it, and even as it's been more recently sort of reconstructed electronically and so on, I mean, is there any way that people who respond to these polls are reacting truthfully, that the pollsters are getting to the right people, or that there's a lack of integrity in the polls in general today? I mean, are those too broad of generalizations about polling? Because it sure seems that they were off here and they've been off for a while.
It's a great point. I'm not a statistician, so I can't comment on the technical points. But like you said, it does seem like they are quite off. Miara's the Virginia's incumbent attorney general seemed to be feeling pretty strong in terms of the polling going into the election, and then it actually appears that Jones has won by a pretty comfortable margin. In New York, we saw sort of a last-second surge for Cuomo, which really didn't materialize when the actual, ballots were turned in. So it's hard to say what's going on there. I think your point on reaching the right people is perhaps what's going on here. I think young people especially are hard to reach with traditional polling methods. Like, I don't have a landline. I don't pick up calls from phone numbers I don't recognize. So maybe it makes it more difficult to poll young people, which certainly could make polls underestimate in one way or another the true outcome of an election. In New York, you also have a lot of foreign born voters who may not speak English, and indeed that is a contingent that very heavily supported Mamdani. So that potentially could be a factor in terms of why the polling showed Cuomo looking stronger than he really ended up being.
So let's switch over. Take time now to switch over to the New York City election. When Mamdani won the Democratic nomination for New York City mayor, it was clear at that moment that there was going to be a new American, a large number of Muslim voters, and younger females especially, who were recruiting their mothers and their aunts and their uncles and so on as well. Really, this election seemed to have been won or lost before Labor Day ever showed up. Whether or not Cuomo was a strong candidate or not, whether or not Sliwa should have been there or not, whether or not Eric Adams should have resigned a lot. He only got like, at least the results I saw this morning, he only got like 6,900 votes out of, I don't know, what, $500,000 or whatever the final count was. Wasn't this thing cooked and baked and figured out? I mean, this has just been a bunch of, everybody's in hilaria about it for the last 3 months, it seems, but this thing was done back in August. Am I right?
Yeah, I feel like, Bill Ackman, Michael Bloomberg probably wasted a lot of money on this race. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if there was a real path for Cuomo to win it. Unfortunately for him.
Well, he certainly he didn't help himself by at least that first debate performance, and maybe he was tired, or maybe the format wasn't right, or what have you. But this is a guy that always seemed to have a very sharp sort of way of responding to questions, and was on his game. He was not on his game in that first one, and he sounded as though he was desperate in the second, even though he did perform much better.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think a lot of New Yorkers potentially also saw him coming off as sort of inauthentic. For better or worse, Curtis Sliwa is very much a character, in a very New York fashion, and I think Mamdani, while he's not like a traditional New Yorker, I think a lot of the young liberals in New York see him as sort of one of them, and that sort of left Cuomo as an outsider, which is ironic that was the perception, because I think if you only looked at New Yorkers who were actually born in America, they ended up voting for Cuomo pretty handedly. So, maybe there's something to be said there about our perceptions versus what actually versus these less online voters and what they end up supporting.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't, the response to Mamdani, and maybe it was to be expected, the response to his nomination wasn't primarily focused on the policies that he espoused and wanted to get done. It seemed to be more on, he is not one of us, and he's a communist. He during the campaign, he kept telling people, well, I'm a Democrat socialist. Is there a difference between a communist and, in his case, a Democrat socialist?
It's a good question. I mean, his father, I think, based on his writings, had very clear Marxist sympathies. I think maybe the bigger thing here is, regardless of what we consider Mamdani, I think he's very clearly on the left wing of the Democratic Party, potentially even the far left, given some of his past statements as it relates to funding the police and decolonization and all of this. And despite that, he seems to have won a majority, if current trends hold, a majority of the voters in New York City. So this is something that mainstream Democrats condone and endorse. Cuomo, who represented sort of a more moderate Democrat, clearly did not do very well. That's not where the Democratic Party is right now. And, with Jay Jones in Virginia, it's hard to view the Democratic Party's establishment as being sort of this, center-left, reasonable, moderate entity that we maybe have in our popular imagination. They endorse people who are very, very outside of the historic norm of American politics, like Mamdani, and that, I think, for Democratic leadership should be something to reflect on.
Mm-hmm. Lots of talk by talkers in the media in the last 24 to 48 hours centers on, well, gee, this is an election that Donald Trump wasn't at the top of the ticket. How much of a difference would Donald Trump being on the top of the ticket, I mean, obviously not in New York City, unless it was a presidential year, but in New Jersey and in Virginia, would he have made a difference had he been on the top of the ballot? I mean, we lost both states. I mean, not by as much as we used to lose those kinds of states, but I think making the excuse that these guys partially lost because he wasn't on the top of the ballot, was something significant, but he didn't win in 16 or 20.
No, it's another good point. And again, we need to look back at 2021. Trump was not on the ballot in Virginia. In fact, he made an effort to stay very much out of the race, and Youngkin did quite well. I don't think Republicans should, blame their failures on that. I think, as we discussed earlier, Republicans need to take a step back, understand New Jersey, Virginia, New York City, these are blue areas. we never expected to win. We shouldn't Republicans should not beat themselves up about having not won. Maybe something to be concerned about. There was a pretty uniform blue shift in Virginia, which maybe signals that there is, broader discontent across the country. However, history informs us that we should be very reluctant to kind of generalize the results of off-year elections to midterms or to general elections. Often these are kind of weird, low turnout events. I think a lot of the protests we've seen in Northern Virginia with indeed like these No Kings things, it's a lot of very sort of like old, educated liberals who are out there protesting. And indeed, these are the same people going to vote during these off-year elections, and they're not at all representative of the broader electorate. So maybe that is something to consider as well.
Right. Vivek Ramaswamy is certainly not the in the age group that you just described, and wasn't protesting on college campuses when he was in college. He said yesterday, Republicans got their asses handed to them yesterday. He said the results of yesterday's election were because Republican message was based on identity politics. Do you think that, in fact, Republicans were using identity politics as their main weapon? And your thoughts on that?
Yeah, in New Jersey, I don't think that was the case at all. I think the Republican nominee there ran a very kitchen tables issue campaign. In fact, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, electricity prices are one of the biggest issues up there in New Jersey. Maybe there's a case for that in New York, but Cuomo is obviously not a Republican. He leaned very heavily into Mamdani's sort of anti-Israel remarks.
Right.
That was a big pillar in his campaign. And in Virginia, I think, as we discussed earlier, it is sort of true that Winsome Sears maybe overemphasized the transgender issue to the detriment of these more sort of bread and butter kitchen table problems facing Virginians. So I would say there's some truth to what Vivek is saying, but it's not uniformly true.
Prop 50 was a big winner in California yesterday as well, kind of going across the country. I think that redistricting has been a problem from almost the beginning of the country, but it seems to be we're hypersensitive today to it because more people are paying attention. Not necessarily focused on Prop 50, because that was sort of the outcome that happened from different states on their own, like Texas and Florida now, doing redistricting, and I guess Ohio is looking at doing it and so on. You're an investigative reporter. What do you hear in the wind about these redistricting, sort of these mid-decade redistrictings, and what people think about them?
Yeah, so based on
California, but what? How do you think regular Joe and Jane voter feel about these redistrictings happening?
Well, in California, it's actually pretty shocking. The maps I was looking at last night, I'm being from SoCal originally, Huntington Beach, which is like sort of a mecca of conservatism in Southern California, seems to be voting, in favor of this redistricting measure, which is very shocking. Which maybe I think sort of the general feeling across the country, based on what I've been reading, is that people on either side of the aisle, partisans on both sides of the aisle, sort of see this as a zero-sum game where they need to, through whatever means necessary, maximize the number of seats they're going to get in Congress. Both sides sort of see the other side as having started the fight, but as you point out, this has been going on literally since the inception of the country, apportionment controversies. One thing I think to look out for that has kind of flown under the radar, Republicans in Georgia lost two statewide elections last night. They were, like commissioner roles, not the most flashy thing, but that is something to look out for. If there is a very strong appetite for redistricting, Georgia potentially in a few cycles, if they lose the governorship, if they lose their control of the state legislature, Republicans could see themselves out, a lot of states in Georgia. Atlanta is obviously a very densely populated area. That can be cracked up to create a lot of blue districts, which could, in the long run, end up harming Republicans pretty bad. But given the current state, the numbers I've seen show that even with the proposition in California 15, I think proposition in California passing, Republicans will likely still come out with a net gain on seats after all the gerrymandering is said and done. But obviously, anything can happen between now and 2026, so it's hard to say.
One last question before we go on to, I want to talk about your article that you just posted yesterday or the day before on some of the think tanks. In terms of this these two by-elections and the mayoral race in New York City, was this about money and was this a wallet issue kind of election? And if so, what do Republicans do until the economy gets ramped up again, hopefully by 2026, and then again in the 28 election?
Yeah, so I think as we discussed, the economic issues were obviously a very big deal in New York and Virginia. I don't know as much about what's going on in New York City, so I can't say what the big issues there were. In terms of the campaign finance angle, Republicans were very well funded in Virginia, but Democrats were better funded. The same is true, I believe, in New Jersey. In New York, I'm not familiar with the numbers off the top of my head, but I know that there was a lot more outside spending benefiting Cuomo as opposed to Mamdani. Now, New York City has a very robust public financing system for mayoral campaigns. So I think Zoran ended up getting like over $20 million in public funds to support his campaign. So that sort of blunted the corporate and billionaire support for Cuomo, its impact. But without really digging into the data, it's hard to say how much of a difference one way or another the money made. I will say in Virginia, if you have the TV on, if you're on the internet, it was basically wall-to-wall advertisements from Republicans and Democrats. Democrats attempting to tie Sears to Trump, and Republicans attempting to tie Spanberger to Jay Jones.
Right. So you posted an article just in the last couple of days. Foreign agents look to influence conservative think tank in Trump's Washington. Hudson Heritage AEI have had a surprising increase in foreign attention, while Brookings and other left of center shops less. Pretty astonishing to me. Brookings is Brookings, but I never imagined that these other organizations that tie themselves to center right causes and principles would ever get this kind of attention and actually take that money and perhaps be influenced in how they're looking at the political world. No?
Sure. It's important to note that those disclosures, what they show is that these countries are paying Americans and others to get information to and to try to influence these think tanks. And that sort of makes sense, with Trump in power. Obviously, the potential that a white paper released by Heritage becomes like actual policy is much higher than it would be under a Biden administration. However, there aren't any actual payments from these foreign agents to the think tanks themselves. I know this is a problem in DC. Think tanks do receive a lot of foreign funding. However, it's sort of difficult to report because the way the tax documents are set up, unless it's from a foreign government, you don't need to disclose it directly. And even if it is from a foreign government, you just need to disclose that you received foreign funding and not necessarily from whom. So if, say, a billionaire in the United Kingdom wanted to give $1 million to a think tank in America, that actually would just be in the pot of revenue that they report and don't really disclose out. So you would see the $1 million, but you wouldn't see who it was from, if that makes sense. So there is a big problem of foreign funding in DC, and the fair disclosures I cite are sort of one window into that, but the broader picture is much more opaque because the regulations governing how these think tanks have to disclose their finances don't, unfortunately, require them to really explain the totality of their foreign funding.
It was difficult, I guess, to ferret out the information that you eventually received?
Yeah, a lot of it is just the Department of Justice has a massive database of just all the contacts between foreign agents and really anyone. If they, according to the Foreign Agents Registration Act, if you are a foreign agent and you're doing any kind of like political lobbying, you need to report that to the Department of Justice. And that ideally goes into their massive database. However, there is, again, a bit of an epidemic of unregistered foreign agents in Washington, D.C., people who are taking money from foreign governments, advocating for them, and then not reporting it. And it's sort of a difficult thing to gauge, like how broad of a problem it is, because you see news reports all the time about them getting caught, but obviously they're not reporting anything. So it is very sort of like opaque and almost it's almost like a little bit of espionage going on every day.
Robert Schmad, he's at the Washington Examiner. Find the Examiner and Robert's investigative reporting by visiting their online site. Thanks very much for spending time with us this morning. I hope you can join us again sometime soon. We need to go and pay some bills, so no channel flipping. We'll be right back. Thanks, Robert.
Thanks for having me.
It's termite season.
Hi, it's me.
And bugs fear the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. Go blue at Essential Pest Control. We'll eliminate those bugs, bees, and termites. And stop paying too much to that national provider. Buy local for great service and affordable rates. Call Essential Pest Control because termites fear the blue.
Run for your life.
Call for the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. 886-3029. That's 886-3029. Or check online at essentialpest.com.
This is Ed Wilkinson with Wilkinson Wealth Management, where we manage money for gun owners. What does it mean to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired? It means designing a plan that allows you to do the things you want to do, outpace inflation, and never run out of money in your lifetime. If you want to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired, call me, Ed Wilkinson, at 777-1911. That's 777-1911 or WilkinsonWealthMGMT.com.
I'm proud to welcome my good friends at Tucson Iron and Metal Retail to Inside Track as an advertiser. Jamie Kipper and her staff are conservation experts. They sell round and square steel tubing, metal plate and roofing materials, as well as new and used steel, aluminum, and stainless steel to ranchers, artists, interior designers, roofers, as well as you do-it-yourselfers out there. Tucson Iron and Metal Retail is open Monday through Fridays, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to noon. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail, 701 East 36th Street. Call 520-209-1576. That's 520-209-1576, or go to TucsonIronRetail.com. Come by and be sure to ask for Jamie. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail. This is what conservation and repurposing is all about.
Welcome back to Inside Track with Bruce Ash on the Live the Dream Media Network. Now back to our show.
Welcome back to Inside Track. This portion of the show brought to you by Ebb's great company, Wilkinson Wealth Management, who helps my family. Let him help yours also. Wilkinson Wealth Management. Call him today at 777-1911. Inside Track also brought to you by Essential Pest Control, Tucson Iron and Metal Retail, and my company, Paul Ash Commercial Real Estate, where we make things great every day. I'm not sure if our next guest is with us. Tony, do we have our next guest yet?
He is not there yet.
Okay, well, we'll hopefully Casey will join us soon. Hey, while we're waiting for Casey Crosby from the RNC, I want to, if I can, share again an announcement on a great event. I think this is now the 5th annual free concert that Rockin' for Heroes does up in Oro Valley. The 5th annual event is this Sunday, November 9th at James Creek Park in Oro Valley. Gates open at 1 p.m. The events start at 2 p.m. And this is a wonderful event. Bonnie talked with the Northwest Side Republican group on Saturday morning and did a really great job talking about all of the different areas that Rockin' for Heroes and the foundation, this is a not-for-profit event, but all of the proceeds go to helping first responders, our veterans, and just amazing the kind of reach into the community educationally and socially and what have you that this event has. And it's a great event. A band from, I think, Lexington, Kentucky, which is ironically is where Casey Crosby is from. The Lexington Lab Band, they're a cover group who do a lot of great artists. and they'll be there from, I think they start at 2:30. And there's a mariachi group from Pueblo High School who will also be there. This isn't just for you northwest side people. This is something from all over town. I'm coming from the Tanque Verde and Grant area, about an hour drive from my house, because I think it is important for Tucsonans to be out there and at the event. So anyway, a good thing that Bonnie Quinn and her husband are doing, and making a big difference for the community. Tony, do we have Casey on the Zoom yet?
Not yet.
All right. Well, starting to get a little nervous. This happens every so often. Casey and I, she's a friend and former colleague of mine at the RNC. She's from Kentucky, and she's been a member of the RNC since 2012. She had earlier served as a counselor on the Lexington-Fayette Urban County Council, and she was elected RNC treasurer in 2023 and became co-chair of the RNC in January 2025. While we're waiting for Casey, let's invite Onita Davis in to come and talk with us about her great organization and the event that she's going to be putting on in December. So Onita's going to make her way in, and why don't you sit right over there, right across from me. So it's great to see you, Onita. It was nice seeing you this past weekend.
I know, we keep running into each other.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
All right, we got you all mic'd up now, and
Okay.
So give us the pitch today for Wreaths Across America.
Hello, everyone. It's that time again, and I know everyone may be having a tough time right now with all the things that are going on economically in our country, but I also think that we're going through a period where we need to revitalize patriotism. And Wreaths Across
There's your pretty
America is the perfect way to do it. This year, our theme is Keep Moving Forward. I know things are tough. I know sometimes we feel like, we're voices in the wilderness. But I also think that we need something that will make us feel good and reconnect us and reconnect our community. And Wreaths Across America allows us to do that. For those of you who are not familiar with Wreaths Across America, December 13th at 10 a.m. in Tucson, noon at Arlington, 9 o'clock if you're in California. And we will be laying wreaths, remembrance wreaths, not Christmas wreaths.
Right. And so make that distinction, because
Yes.
you talked about that the other day at the Northwest Republicans. This isn't just a Christmas thing. It's not just for Christians.
Exactly.
It's for everybody who was
a veteran,
right.
who has served our country and has died.
Right.
It's our way of saying thank you, because I think people say, well, why are you putting flowers on a dead person's grave? Because the key to Wreaths Across America is that we never forget those who have served. And so if we lay a wreath and say that person's name out loud, you have to stop, take a breath, lay the wreath, and read what's on the headstone. And that person will never die if we keep saying the name aloud.
Right.
And so it's really important for people to understand it's not just about decorating a headstone. The wreath has very special meanings. Each part of that live balsam wreath from Maine represents an attribute that our veteran has. And so we encourage people to come out, help us lay wreaths, help us to educate people. Wreaths Across America tells us we must do three things: honor those who are serving, remember those who have served, and teach patriotism to others. And so it doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are. We love to see children. All the local cemeteries will be honoring.
So you are with the VFW Auxiliary in Oro Valley.
I'm not. American Legion Auxiliary.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
American Legion. The host has one very bad moment every show, okay? And that was just it.
I will forgive you forever.
Okay. So American Legion, Oro Valley, the auxiliary. And where will you be on that December 13th?
We will be at the Marana Veterans Cemetery. Some people have the impression that that's a national cemetery. It's not. It's a state cemetery. But I tell you, we're going to run out of room soon. It's very popular with our veterans because we've waited a long time in Tucson to have a cemetery that's close.
It's beautiful out there.
It's out in the boonies the way we like it.
Everybody who has been laid to rest there. I mean, this is a dignified,
yes, it is,
wonderful place, and it is something to behold. My brother-in-law's father and mother are there. They're in the mausoleum.
Oh, okay.
But I spent a lot of time at the cemetery, both of those passings.
Yes, it's beautiful, and people are saying, "Well, I've never thought of going. What do I have to do? Do I have to sign up for Marana?" We just want you to show up.
Right.
Every cemetery here in Tucson will start its ceremony at 10 a.m. on the 13th, with the laying of wreaths at approximately 10:30 because we're trying to synchronize with Arlington. Sure. And so we encourage you to get there about 9:30 or so. If you've ever been out there, you know parking goes very quickly. But when it's all said and done and all the wreaths are in place and you wait till the crowd melts away, it is such a moving picture of love for our veterans.
You know, in 2019, my wife and I attended the D-Day ceremonies at Normandy.
Yeah.
But before we got to Normandy on June 6th, we went to cemeteries in Belgium, elsewhere in France, in Holland, and I particularly was interested. You know, there's always an attendant who's there, making sure that everything is okay. And in some of the sites, going back to World War I,
yes,
you've got Germans laid next to French, laid next to Belgians, laid next to others. Right?
Mm.
The German graves aren't tended. And I asked the question in a couple of those different cemeteries, do the relatives of the German soldiers, do they come and visit the graves? And each one of them, who'd been there for years, said, in all my years working here, I've never had any relative of a German soldier who's come in. And I thought to myself, I mean, these were our foreign adversaries in 2 world wars.
Yes.
But you talk about forgetting a life.
Yes.
If you don't say their name. And I felt a little weird.
You're going to make me tear up.
But I pronounce, I pronounce their name just like I did for an American, just like I did for a Brit, because I just knew, as you say, a voice must be, your voice must be heard for each of these veterans. And I remember when I have attended, I usually attended down at Evergreen because it's a little closer, but I'm going, I'll talk about that in a second. I'm going up to Oro Valley.
Okay.
But we said those names, and it really did make a difference.
It makes a difference to the person who's speaking the name, and that's the point of it. You want to connect us to make those people real, to
Right.
connect us to
Right.
those veterans who have given, some of them have paid the ultimate price, some of them have died from old age. It
Right.
doesn't matter.
Right.
When they were called to serve their country, they served. And Evergreen has such a unique history because there are over 15,000 veterans buried at Evergreen, some back to the Civil War.
Right.
And people right here in Tucson aren't even aware of
Right.
that. And so it's I know I'm a wuss. Reefs Across America is my passion, so I come on
I
this
can
show
tell.
every year and I beg for support because I really think it's something, some small way that we can say thank you to these veterans who can't hear our voices, but God can. And we need to say their names.
Well, I plan to be there, for almost 15 years. I wasn't able to go to the ceremonies because I was preparing a radio show
know.
that was going to start at 1 o'clock. So one of the great things about not doing the Saturday radio broadcasts and being here at Live the Dream Media with Inside Track is that I actually have my Saturdays free. I'll be there. And,
Okay.
And Anita, I want to make sure that you leave here today. So Anita knows that when we make gifts, we try to do it with the number 18 in it. 18
Yes.
Chai in Hebrew is for luck and for life.
Yes.
And here's a check from my company, from partners of ours, for $1,800.
Oh,
And-
bless you.
And I just want
You're
to make
going to
sure.
make me cry.
Just want to make sure we did that on air. Eb has a check that he'll be presenting to you as well.
Okay.
But this is a great way to bring the community together
It is.
in the holiday season
Yes.
with love and admiration and respect. And I cannot tell you how much love and admiration you engender
Oh,
from everybody here in Tucson with the work that you've done in this area and
Thank
all
you.
the other things that you've been involved in.
you are too kind. And if anyone would like to donate, the
Yeah,
wreaths
tell us
are
how to do it.
$17, but you can donate any portion of a wreath, whatever you're able to give. You can easily find how to give by going to our website, which is OV, like Oro Valley, OVUnit132.info. So that's www.OVUnit132.info. And scroll down to the bottom of the page, and all the ordering information is right there for you. You can use the QR code, or you can click on the link, and it will take you to our Reefs Across America webpage. Just click on the red sponsor button and donate whatever you feel compelled to donate. But we are running behind on reefs for Marana. In fact, for all the cemeteries here in Tucson. And so I know I'm getting
We
a
still
little
have
nervous.
about 5 weeks. We got
That's
5
right.
weeks, and we're
Well,
going to be doing announcements on the show as we've been doing for the last few weeks. But you'll be back here. I think you're coming back next week, right?
next week,
Yeah.
if you are mailing a donation in, which is your option, it must be received by November 28th because the wreaths have to come from Maine.
Right.
And they go into St. Louis. They made the mistake of sending them to Phoenix one year. Almost all of them died from the heat. So now the wreaths are held in St. Louis. Our truck driver will pick them up there and bring them on to Tucson so that they're here about 2 days before the service.
All right.
So please come out and join us, everyone. We'd love to see you. I'm going to look. We have to take a picture of you there.
You'll see.
That will be the proof of the pudding.
I'll be there. I'll be there. Well, Anita, we're out of time today. We need to run. All of our Inside Track podcasts are available on Live the Dream Media's Facebook live page, YouTube, Apple, and X. Thanks for joining us today on Inside Track,
Thank
Anita.
you for your generosity. See you next
my
week.
honor. Until next Wednesday for a special Veterans Day show with former Blue Angel lead solo pilot Frank Weiser. This is Bruce Ash for Eb Wilkinson. We'll see you again in 167 hours.
The gentleman who is